Hello, I'm Alexis, and at 29 years old, I strive to maintain a fragile equilibrium between my home and work life. My husband, Bruce, who is also 29, has a strong bond with his mother, Doris. Unfortunately, Doris often treats me poorly, creating strain in our relationship. Despite these difficulties, Bruce and I recently marked our second wedding anniversary, and I take pride in navigating the intricacies that accompany it. My job has become a refuge, offering both an escape and a sense of accomplishment, resulting in multiple promotions, an achievement not frequently attained by women in my industry. Right now, I'm in Europe on a business trip for important meetings. During one of these sessions, my phone, which was silenced, vibrated repeatedly, signaling something unusual. I saw I had 5 missed calls from Doris, and a wave of worry washed over me. Fearing it might be an emergency, I decided to step outside to return her call. Just as I was about to dial, she called me again. "Hello, Alexis, where are you?" she demanded, irritation evident in her voice. I hesitated, disliking her tone, but replied, "Hi Doris, I'm in a meeting. Is everything all right?" "Where are you?" she repeated, her impatience palpable. Though her attitude annoyed me, I was determined to keep things calm. "I apologize, Doris. Didn't Bruce inform you that I'm away on business? Can we talk later?" "Bruce did mention it. But why are you leaving your house and husband by themselves? You need to come home right away," she insisted, her abruptness typical. "I can't leave right now. I'm in the middle of something significant," I attempted to explain, but she interrupted me. "You're so controlling, even though you're just Bruce's wife. I don't care about your excuses. Come home immediately." Her harsh words stung, but I knew I had to maintain my composure for my work obligations. "Do you understand how important today is?" I asked, confused. "Oh, you genuinely don't know?" she replied, a hint of mockery in her tone. "Today is my 62nd birthday." Her voice dripped with expectation and triumph, catching me off guard. I recalled her birthday being later in the month, and this revelation was especially surprising since I was on a business trip. Bruce and I had planned a special dinner at a fancy restaurant to celebrate her milestone. I was growing increasingly tired of Doris's constant attempts to dominate every situation, which seemed to escalate annually, particularly when I was busy with work. As I mentioned, "I can't return home today. I'm on a business trip," I reiterated calmly. "That's hilarious," she retorted sarcastically. "I spoke to Bruce earlier, and he's taking the day off for me. All the relatives will be there. But you're always buried in work. You appear so detached. How do you think that makes your husband's family feel?" Her comments were designed to hurt, and I realized that engaging further would only worsen the situation. Still in a meeting, I had no choice but to end the call. "I'm sorry, but I can't make it to your birthday celebration today," I stated firmly. Doris's tone shifted, revealing her frustration. "Fine, then I won't consider you part of the family anymore. Don't bother coming back. It's like a divorce. Bruce deserves better." Her biting remarks left me angry and distressed, but I was determined not to escalate the argument over the phone. "Okay, we can discuss this when I return. I'm sorry, but I need to go now," I responded, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's with that attitude?" Doris snapped. "I told you not to come back. I'll speak to Bruce myself." With that, she hung up. Drained from my conversation with my mother-in-law, I returned to my meeting, letting out a deep sigh. After 3 exhausting days of non-stop meetings, I finally made my way home. My thoughts consumed with anger and frustration from my confrontation with Doris, I barely registered the drive, lost in contemplation. Upon opening the front door and calling out, my husband Bruce welcomed me with a tired, "Welcome back." I kicked off my heels and walked into the living room, leaving my suitcase by the entrance. There, surrounded by a mountain of cardboard boxes, I found Bruce visibly sweating as he sealed them with tape. "What's all this?" I asked, intrigued. Bruce explained that these boxes contained my belongings. He recounted how, during Doris's 62nd birthday celebration, the very day she had called me, she announced to everyone that I had ignored her birthday and had been rude over the phone. To my shock, she told the relatives that she wanted me divorced and sent back to my parents' house because I was not a suitable match for her son. This was typical behavior for Doris. I pressed Bruce for more information. "And then what happened? Did your mother really tell you to get a divorce, and you just went along with it?" "No, I didn't exactly agree," Bruce replied, sounding weary, "but she insisted I pack up your things." I felt trapped. What was I supposed to do? He paused, looking defeated. "What do you mean? You didn't argue with her? Are you saying you're okay with the idea of us getting divorced? My confusion and frustration continued to build. Bruce then shared that his father, Russell, had sided with Doris, advising him, "If Doris is upset, it'll be tough for you. It's best to just do what she wants." Bruce had reluctantly gone along with the idea of a divorce, leaving me stunned by how easily he seemed to accept his mother's demands. "What is wrong with your family?" I wondered aloud. "Your father is dominated by your mother, and you just blindly obey her too." I felt utterly isolated, as if no one was supporting me. After a long silence, Bruce finally said, "What my mother decides is final, but it's only until she calms down and things settle. This divorce isn't real. I'll come for you when things improve." His eyes begged for my understanding, and I wished he would direct that pleading toward his mother instead. How could a grown man like Bruce be so intimidated by his mother? I thought, a mixture of disappointment and disbelief washing over me. It felt like there was no way to salvage this situation. I nearly felt ashamed as I questioned what I had ever seen in him while processing everything. I recognized that this situation might provide a surprising chance for freedom. Remaining with Bruce meant enduring Doris's antagonism and her relentless hints about divorce. Separating could actually become a fortunate turn of events. I was more than capable of taking care of myself, and living alone wouldn't lead to any form of deprivation. With this newfound clarity, I turned to Bruce and stated firmly, "Let's move forward with the divorce." Afterward, I called Doris. After several attempts, she finally picked up. "Hello," I said softly. "As you wish, we're getting a divorce," I informed her. To my astonishment, Doris responded with an unnaturally cheerful tone, saying, "Yes, finally, you understand you're not good enough for Bruce. I'm so relieved. Don't worry, I'll find him a new wife, someone obedient, attractive, and kind to her in-laws." Her words dripped with a misplaced sense of victory as she added, "I'm sure Bruce will be just fine. I'll take care of him until he finds his next wife. You don't need to worry about that." Enduring her sarcasm, I replied, "Well, don't get it twisted. It's not just about you." Still buoyed by her mood, Doris shot back, "Oh, you're just a sore loser. Don't worry about me or Bruce. Alexis, I've already received the divorce papers from the city office and gave them to Bruce. Don't forget to sign them." With that, she hung up. Bruce, who had overheard my conversation, looked strangely relieved. This made me question his understanding of the situation. "By the way, does your mother know you're actually a full-time house husband?" "How could I tell her that?" he replied, his tone becoming serious. "My mother is fixated on the idea that I'm a high-ranking employee at a big company." "Right," I acknowledged. Reflecting on his behavior, it dawned on me that Bruce had never been honest with Doris. At home, he lounged in old sweatshirts but donned a suit whenever he met her, pretending to be at work when she called. Doris had proudly announced at her birthday party that Bruce was such a devoted son, taking time off just to be there. She also boasted about his supposed status, claiming he could easily find a more compliant and attractive wife than me. This pretense, maintained for the sake of appearances, contributed to the strange dynamics that had led our relationship to this point. The truth's revelation seemed unavoidable once our divorce was finalized, but Doris, who held her son in such high regard, would likely never suspect that Bruce was no longer employed at the prestigious company he once worked for. In fact, he had left that job nearly a year ago. What Doris perceived as her elite, high-status son was now an unemployed full-time house husband. Bruce's departure from his job resulted from a major error that led to a demotion, a pay cut, and a formal apology. He likely kept this hidden from his mother, fearing her reaction. The setback had a profound impact on him, especially given Doris's tendency to coddle him. The mere thought of returning to an office environment and confronting the consequences of his mistake triggered intense anxiety and nausea. At first, he tried to manage the situation by reporting his absences and requesting paid leave, but eventually, he stopped calling altogether. As his unauthorized absences accumulated, he was let go. Now, with no intention of seeking new employment, Bruce depended heavily on my income, fully aware that sharing this with Doris would unleash her fury and disappointment. I felt a pang of regret at the thought of not witnessing Doris's reaction upon discovering her son's circumstances after my departure. I imagined she would be utterly shocked, perhaps even to an extreme degree. However, that was no longer my concern. When Bruce handed me the divorce papers, he mentioned that they were merely a facade to appease his mother. "Okay," I said, processing the information. I promptly filed the papers and signed a lease for a new apartment, planning to move out as soon as possible. A month later, unexpectedly, Doris called. Despite thinking I had severed ties for good, curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. What do you want now? Aren't you happy to be rid of me? I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. You're still the same, just listen to me, Doris replied, her tone unchanged. As she spoke about Bruce, she revealed that since my departure, she had visited his apartment several times to help with chores, only to find him idly lounging in his room each time, with no indication of going to work or being ill. Suppressing a laugh, I responded nonchalantly, well, Bruce is like that because he has no intention of working again. Doris seemed oblivious to her role in this predicament. Shockingly, she asked, Alexis, can you do something about it? Why should I? You didn't want me in your family and wanted nothing to do with me. I snapped back, pointing out how predictable it was for her to seek assistance only when it suited her after years of treating me poorly. The irony of her predicament was not lost on me, and I felt a sense of satisfaction realizing the extent of her self-inflicted issues. Doris attempted to shift the blame onto me. I was curious if you said something to Bruce before you left. I couldn't believe her suggestion. Really, Doris? You think I married Bruce just for a lavish lifestyle? If that were the case, why would the divorce bother me? She looked at me with suspicion, as if I had only wed Bruce for his wealth. Are you serious? I was the one financially supporting Bruce throughout our marriage. I was the provider, not him. Because of him, I couldn't even afford to live extravagantly, I asserted, contemplating whether I should think about requesting alimony. Doris appeared stunned by the revelation. How dare you fabricate something like that? Alexis, you just forgot to ask for alimony, didn't you? Bruce earns more and has a better job than you. Don't be unreasonable. If you need money, Bruce can pay whatever you ask. After all, he is a senior employee at a large corporation. Her argument was absurd, and perhaps Bruce hadn't told her the truth yet. I didn't want to gossip, but I seized the chance to clarify the facts. Your esteemed son is a full-time house husband. He quit his job long ago, I disclosed. You're lying, Doris screamed, her volume causing me to flinch. I pulled the phone away from my ear and suggested, why not check with his employer? You'll discover who's telling the truth. There was a moment of silence before her voice softened. Well, if that's true, what will we do? I can't support my son on just my pension, and no one will want to marry him if he's unemployed. What are we going to do? I couldn't help but smile at her sudden change of tone. What shall we do? I echoed, amusement in my voice. After a brief pause, she murmured something to someone next to her, then switched to a completely different tone, pleading, Hey Alexis, would you please come back home? Her abrupt request baffled me, but I responded firmly, No, we're divorced now. I wouldn't return to your family even if the world turned upside down. The finality of my words signified the closure of that chapter as I moved on from the tangled relationships that had ensnared me. While I spoke with Doris, chaos erupted in the background. Someone was yelling. It sounded like Bruce. His voice broke through the noise. I told you I'd come for you when things settled down. Doris quickly replied, Yes, you could marry my son if you want to. What are you talking about? I asked, bewildered. No way, I wouldn't do that for anything. Don't joke about this. I made it clear to Doris that I had no desire to revive anything with her son or entangle myself in any further toxic dynamics. I was finished with someone who was excessively attached to his mother. I did what you wanted, so please stop changing your mind, Doris retorted, but the tension was palpable even through the phone. You shouldn't take my words so seriously. You've been quite dismissive, haven't you? She continued. I didn't think you would actually go through with divorcing my son. Her tone revealed her shock at my resolute rejection. In response to her excuses, I replied, Well, I was just putting up with the situation. Besides, Bruce packed my belongings and essentially forced me out without my consent. I expressed my frustration, recalling everything she had orchestrated against me. That was just a joke, she dismissed casually. A joke? It was much worse than that, I said, completely exasperated. There was nothing more to discuss. I glanced at my watch and saw it was nearly 2 p.m. My lunch break had been wasted on this futile conversation. Ah, Doris, are you finished now? I asked, eager to end things. Alexis, what did you say? She responded, her tone annoyingly sweet. Did she think that a sugary tone would soften my response? Knowing it wouldn't satisfy her, I said decisively, I'm going to hang up now. I have another meeting in a few minutes and need to review some documents. As I began to end the call, Doris kept insisting, Wait, Alexis, hey Alexis, say something. I could hear her yelling as I hung up. Leaving the turmoil and unwanted pleas behind me, I was ready to move on, free from the chaos that had entangled me for far too long. During our chaotic call, Doris seized the chance to scold Bruce, chastising him for mishandling the situation and pointing out the repercussions of his actions. It became clear that she was quick to blame everyone else for her difficulties. Feeling utterly drained by her behavior, I ended the call and decided to block her number permanently. After that, Bruce tried repeatedly to contact me. Seeing a clear path ahead, I consulted my lawyer about pursuing alimony. Faced with the possibility of legal action, Bruce's family, likely anxious about the consequences, agreed to settle the alimony in a lump sum. It seemed my former in-laws had to come up with the money, leaving Russell and Doris constantly agitated with Bruce. They urged him daily to find a job, which only added to his frustrations. Ultimately, Bruce moved back in with his parents because he could no longer afford his apartment rent. He blamed them for his situation, which strained their finances, including their pension and retirement savings. Like mother, like son, they continued to point fingers at each other for their troubles while refusing to acknowledge their own roles in the mess they had created. They were even contemplating applying for welfare, a move I hoped would make them realize that their selfish behavior couldn't continue indefinitely. On a positive note for me, the business proposal I pitched during my trip was accepted, leading to a significant contract. This success resulted in another promotion, a higher salary, and a more prosperous lifestyle. Now, enjoying the freedom of a wealthy bachelor's existence, I was relieved to be free from the torment of in-laws and financial dependence on family members. Reflecting on the past, if I ever considered marriage again, I would undoubtedly conduct a thorough background check to avoid any mama's boys or troublesome in-laws. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video. Stay amazed.